If you accept the official story they are feeding you about what happened 7 days ago, if you truly believe the United States military launched a high-risk operation halfway across the world just to capture one man, then you are missing the most important financial signal of your entire lifetime. This was not politics. This was not diplomacy. And it certainly was not about justice. What happened on January 3rd at 2 o'clock in the morning was not a military mission in the traditional sense. It was a financial operation. It was a robbery. And it was the clearest confirmation yet that the US dollar has reached the end of the road. Strip away the flags, the speeches, and the media narratives, and what remains is something far more disturbing. The raid on Caracas was not about ideology or democracy. It was the desperate act of an empire that can no longer afford to pay for the resources it needs to survive. For half a century, the United States enjoyed a privilege no other empire in history ever had. It could print paper at virtually zero cost and exchange it for real wealth. It could print dollars and receive oil, electronics, labor, metals, and commodities from the rest of the world. It was the greatest monetary illusion ever created, but illusions only work as long as people believe in them. And that belief is now gone. The debt has grown to a level that defies logic, $38.5 trillion and rising, a number so large it no longer represents money, but failure. Interest payments alone now consume more than entire national budgets. The math no longer works. And when an empire realizes its credit card is maxed out, when the world no longer wants its IOUs, it does not stop consuming. It stops trading, and it starts taking. This is stage 4 of empire collapse. Desperate resource acquisition. It is the moment the hegemon understands that the only real asset it has left is military power, and it decides to use that power to seize collateral. Do you really believe helicopters, special forces, and naval assets were deployed just to arrest one man? Do you really think they risked international escalation for a photo opportunity? No. They went for the prize. They went for the oil. $17 trillion worth of proven reserves sitting beneath Venezuelan soil, collateral for a dying system. If the dollar were strong, they would have written a check. They would have bought the oil. Instead, they sent gunships. That single decision tells you everything you need to know about the true purchasing power of the fiat currency in your wallet. It tells you the system is broken. It tells you the printing press is no longer enough. And if they are willing to violate sovereignty to secure energy, ask yourself what they will do when they run out of the next strategic resource. Because oil is not the end of this story, silver is. You cannot run a modern military without silver. You cannot fire missiles, operate satellites, power guidance systems, or maintain advanced communications without it. And unlike oil, silver cannot be conjured overnight. It must be mined, refined, and sourced from a shrinking pool of suppliers, and those suppliers are no longer friendly. We are no longer living in a free market governed by supply and demand. We are entering a global resource war, where ownership is determined by force, not price. In that environment, holding paper assets is not conservative. It is reckless. Stocks, bonds, pensions, and currency are nothing more than claims on a government that is now resorting to extraction by force. When the state turns predatory, nothing inside the system is safe. History has shown us this pattern again and again. Rome followed it, the Dutch followed it, the British followed it. 7 stages of rise and decline, always the same, always ending the same way. Sound money gives way to debt. Debt gives way to debasement. Debasement gives way to loss of confidence. And loss of confidence gives way to collapse. The United States is not unique. It is simply late. We are no longer approaching the danger zone. We are in it. The national balance sheet is no longer a financial document. It is a crime scene. Debt is increasing by billions every single day. Interest costs have surpassed $1 trillion annually. The government is now borrowing just to service previous borrowing. That is not sustainability. That is a Ponzi scheme. As long as the world was willing to hold dollars, the illusion could continue. But once that willingness disappears, the system changes instantly. Trade becomes tribute. Commerce becomes conquest. The empire stops negotiating and starts seizing. That is what you saw in Venezuela. The media will tell you this was about foreign policy. It was not. It was about collateral. The oil reserves alone represent nearly half the current national debt. This was liquidation, a cornered animal securing tangible assets to plug a hemorrhaging balance sheet. Thriving nations create, dying nations take. And when a government is willing to break international law to secure resources abroad, you should ask yourself whether your private wealth at home is truly protected. History tells us it is not. First, they seize foreign assets, then they freeze pensions, then they regulate savings, then they confiscate. This is why the only assets that matter in this phase are bearer assets, assets you hold directly, assets with no counterparty risk, assets that cannot be frozen, diluted, or erased by decree. And this brings us to the most important historical parallel of all, Rome's silver denarius. For centuries, the denarius was the reserve currency of the ancient world. It was trusted not because of Rome's power, but because of its metal content. 94% silver, honest money, trade flourished, inflation was non-existent, wealth accumulated. But as the empire expanded and spending exploded, the silver ran out. Instead of cutting expenses, the emperors cheated. They diluted the coins, mixed copper into silver, created more units without creating more value. At first, no one noticed. Then prices began to rise. Then confidence collapsed. Eventually, the denarius became a copper disc coated in silver wash. A lie. Merchants rejected it. Soldiers refused it. Inflation exploded. The economy collapsed into barter, and Rome fell into chaos. That exact process is happening today, only instead of shaving coins, we are diluting claims. Paper silver, paper dollars, derivatives layered on derivatives, hundreds of paper ounces sold for every real ounce in existence. It is the same fraud, executed digitally. The price you see on the screen is not the price of silver. It is the price of diluted claims. Just like the Roman who believed he held silver but really held copper, modern investors believe they hold wealth when they hold paper. They do not. They hold promises from an insolvent system. We are now approaching stage 5, total loss of confidence. This is when merchants, producers, and citizens reject the currency outright. This is why the government is securing oil. It knows the paper game is ending. Force replaces trust. And the insiders know it too. The largest migration of private wealth in history is underway. Over 140,000 millionaires are leaving Western financial centers, selling property, closing accounts, securing foreign citizenship, buying land, concrete, and metal. They are not listening to speeches. They are watching actions. When the Treasury admitted we are nearing fiscal dominance, that was the fire alarm. It means the central bank has lost control. Rates cannot rise without collapse. Rates cannot fall without hyperinflation. There is no exit. The wealthy understand this. That is why they are fleeing jurisdictions, not markets. But most people cannot buy a second passport or a private bunker. They need a different lifeboat. That lifeboat is physical silver. Silver is portable, liquid, and universally recognized. It exists outside the banking system. It does not rely on trust. It does not require permission. It is the common man's escape hatch. And do not think the government is unaware of this. When capital flight accelerates, aggression increases. Oil was first. Silver is next. Once declared a strategic material, supply will be redirected, controlled, and eventually nationalized. When that happens, price no longer matters. Availability disappears. This is why $80 is not expensive. It is irrelevant. It is the final window before the dam breaks. When the public rush begins, there will be no inventory, only signs saying sold out. History does not repeat, but it always rhymes. Those who held paper in Rome were wiped out. Those who held metal survived and rebuilt the world. You now face the same choice. Stay in the system and hope it fixes itself. Or recognize the signs, read the pattern, and act while you still can. The greatest wealth transfer in history has already begun. It started quietly in the early hours of January 3rd. The empire is liquidating itself. Make sure you are positioned on the receiving side, not the paying side. This is B. John Money Discipline. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and stay prepared.